Hi, I'm Pastor Sami, and I'm so glad you've decided to join me again for another special message about this week's Gospel reading. This week's Gospel reading is a really popular passage of Scripture called the Beatitudes, or the Blessings. Now, this word blessing is one that we use pretty often. It can be just used to describe something good that's happened, or maybe even when something bad almost happened, but something good happens instead. Like if we were sick, but then we get better, or if we were afraid of a natural disaster, a flood or a tornado, but we were saved from it. We say that we were blessed. But I think that this way that we use blessing gets kind of confusing, and it actually messes with the way that we think about God. Because when we say that we were sick but we get better, and that means that we are blessed, that implies that God blessed us in a way that maybe God wouldn't bless someone else. Like, does that mean that if somebody else gets sick and they don't get better, that God didn't bless them, but somebody who did get sick and got better was blessed by God? That gets into some really tricky territory. It just doesn't seem right, does it? I think about it kind of like I think about how I water my lawn. Now, I water my lawn with a sprinkler, and I have all these planters around the outside of my yard that I use a garden hose, and I even have a terrace with some plants, and I have to use a watering can up there. I pick and choose what gets watered and what doesn't, and the parts that don't get water, they get brown and they die. But the parts that do get water, well, they're lucky. They get to grow. But I think God's blessing is much more like rain. Because when rain falls, it covers everything. It covers everything. It covers the brown spots in my yard. It covers the plants and the grass. It covers the roof of my house and my driveway and the street and the sidewalk and everything. Rain covers everything. Snow covers blankets. Everything. And sometimes we even get too much, more than we expected or can handle. God's blessing is much more like rain or snow than my dinky watering can and hose. God's blessing is much more like that. God's blessing covers everything. There's nothing that can escape God's blessing. So I hope that you might think about that, the difference between luck and blessing, and maybe the next time something good happens, you think about it. Is this more like God's blessing, or is this more like some random good luck that I got? God's blessing is still very important. God's blessing is that no matter what happens, God is right alongside us. Even death, we are still blessed by God. God is still with us, and we have that promise because of our baptism. On this All Saints' Day, I hope that you'll remember that God's blessing is with you and all those you love who are alive and who have died. That is God's blessing. I hope you'll join me again next time.